Princess Valari was born on the worst night in Korvathi history. The great star Axon, which had burned bright for 10,000 years, collapsed into darkness at the exact moment she took her first breath. The priest looked at the sky, then looked at the crying baby, and they knew what this meant. The old prophecy had come true. A child born under a dying star would bring ruin to the empire. Her mother, the queen, died giving birth to her. Her father, the emperor, never looked at her the same way again. He loved her in his own broken way, but he could not escape the whispers of the court. Every noble, every general, every servant believed that Valari was cursed. They believed that keeping her alive was a mistake, but the emperor could not kill his own daughter. So instead, he hid her away. Valari grew up in the eastern tower of the palace, far from the throne room and the grand halls where important decisions were made. She had tutors who taught her language and history and science. She had servants who brought her food and cleaned her rooms. But she had no friends. No one wanted to be close to the cursed princess. She spent her childhood looking out the window at a city she was not allowed to visit. She watched other children play in the streets below. She watched soldiers march in parades. She watched ships rise into the sky and disappear among the stars. And she dreamed of a life where she was not alone. When Valari was 16 years old, her father died. The nobles gathered in the great hall to decide who would rule next. By ancient law, Valari was the only heir. The crown belonged to her. But the High Council refused to accept this. Lord Kevin, the oldest and most powerful of the nobles, stood before the assembly and spoke against her. He said that placing a cursed child on the throne would doom them all. He said that the prophecy was clear. He said that Valari must be removed from the line of succession for the good of the empire. The other nobles agreed. One by one, they voted against her. Valari stood in the back of the hall and watched as her birthright was taken from her. No one spoke in her defense. No one even looked at her. The council created a new government. 5 nobles would rule together, sharing power among themselves. Valari was allowed to keep her title, but it meant nothing. She had no authority, no influence, and no hope. 10 years passed. Valari remained in her tower, forgotten by everyone. She read books and studied the stars and tried to find meaning in her empty life. Sometimes she wondered if the prophecy was true. Maybe she really was cursed. Maybe everyone was right to reject her. Then the Draven came. The Draven Collective was an empire of warriors. They lived for conquest. They believed that the strong had the right to rule the weak, and they had spent centuries proving this belief across 100 worlds. Now they turned their eyes toward Korvath. Their warships appeared in the sky without warning. Massive vessels, black as night, blocking out the sun. The Korvathi military scrambled to respond, but they were not prepared. The Draven had been planning this attack for years. They knew exactly where to strike. In the first hour, they destroyed the orbital defense platforms. In the first day, they burned the 3 largest military bases to ash. In the first week, they conquered half the planet. The 5 nobles who ruled the council fled to underground bunkers. They sent desperate messages to their generals, ordering them to fight back. But the generals knew the truth. The Korvathi military was broken. They could not win this war. Valari watched the invasion from her tower. She saw the fires burning across the city. She heard the screams of people running through the streets. She felt the ground shake as bombs fell from the sky. And for the first time in her life, she felt something other than sadness. She felt anger. She left her tower and walked to the council chamber. The nobles were gone, hiding like cowards, but their communication equipment was still there. Valari sat down at the console and began to work. She had spent years studying technology in her isolation. She knew how to use these machines. She sent a message. Not to the nobles, not to the generals, but to everyone. She broadcast her voice across every channel, every frequency, every network in the galaxy. "This is Princess Valari of the Corvathi Empire," she said. "My world is dying. My people are being slaughtered. Our military has fallen, and our leaders have abandoned us. I am asking, begging, for anyone who can hear this message to help us. I will give anything. I will promise anything. Please, someone, anyone, help us." She sent the message again and again. She sent it to the Silurian Federation, the largest and most powerful alliance in the known galaxy. She sent it to the Nexari Coalition, famous for their advanced technology. She sent it to the Veldrum Republic, the Asari Dominion, the Krethian Union. She sent it to every civilization she had ever read about in her books, and she waited. Days passed. The Draven continued their conquest. The five nobles sent her an angry message, telling her that she had no right to speak for the Empire. They told her that her actions were illegal and that she would be punished when the war was over. Valari ignored them. More days passed. The responses began to arrive, but they were not what she hoped for. The Silurian Federation said they could not get involved in a regional conflict. The Nexari Coalition said they feared the political consequences of intervention. The Veldrum Republic said that helping a cursed princess would bring bad luck to their people. One by one, every major power in the galaxy rejected her plea. Valari sat alone in the council chamber, reading the messages of refusal. The fires outside her window grew brighter. The sounds of war grew louder. She had tried everything, and she had failed. The prophecy was right. She was cursed, and her curse had doomed her people. She was about to give up when one final message arrived. It came from a sector of space she had never heard of, from a species that was not in any of her books. The message was short and simple. "This is Captain Danny Carter of the United Earth vessel Starfall. We received your distress signal. We are coming to help." "Hold on." Valari stared at the screen. She did not know who these humans were. She did not know if they were strong enough to fight the Draven. But for the first time in her life, someone had answered her call. Someone was coming. Danny Carter had never planned to be a starship captain. He grew up on a farm in Kansas, a place of flat land and big skies and hard work. His father taught him how to fix tractors and plant corn and survive the long winters. His mother taught him how to be kind to strangers and stand up for people who could not stand up for themselves. When Danny was 18, he joined the United Earth Fleet, not because he wanted to fight, but because he wanted to see what was out there. He wanted to know if the stars were as beautiful up close as they were from his back porch. He wanted to meet new people and learn new things and have adventures that he could tell his grandchildren about someday. He worked his way up slowly. He started as a maintenance technician, fixing broken machines on cargo ships. Then he became a pilot, flying supply runs between Earth and the colony on Mars. Then he became an officer, leading small teams on exploration missions to the outer planets. And finally, at the age of 34, he was given command of his own ship. The Starfall was not a warship. It was a science vessel, designed for exploration and research. It had a crew of 47 people, most of them scientists and engineers. It had basic weapons for self-defense, but nothing that could match a real military vessel. It was meant to study new planets and chart new stars, not fight wars. Danny was fine with that. He had never wanted to fight anyone. The Starfall was 3 months into a mission to map uncharted space when they received the distress signal. Danny was in his quarters, reading a book about ancient Earth history, when Lieutenant Kate Morrison called him to the bridge. Kate was his first officer and his oldest friend. They had served together for 12 years, and she knew him better than anyone. She also knew that he had a habit of making decisions that were brave, but not very smart. "Captain, you need to hear this," she said when he arrived on the bridge. She played the message. Danny listened to the voice of Princess Valari, desperate and afraid, begging for someone to help her people. He listened to her describe the invasion, the destruction, the death. He listened to her offer everything she had in exchange for assistance. When the message ended, Danny was quiet for a long moment. "How far away is this planet?" he asked. Kate checked her console. 18 days at maximum speed. "But Danny, this is not our mission. We are explorers, not soldiers. We have no right to get involved in an alien war." She asked for help, Danny said simply. Every major power in the galaxy has already refused. The Zilorians, the Nexari, everyone. They all said no. What makes you think we can do anything different? Danny looked at the star map on the main screen. The Kovathi homeworld was a small blue dot, very far away. He thought about the voice he had just heard. He thought about the fear and the desperation and the loneliness in that voice. "Maybe we cannot do anything," he said. "But we can try. And sometimes trying is enough." Kate shook her head. "The crew will think you have lost your mind. The crew can vote. If they want to go home, we go home. But I'm going to ask them first." Danny called a meeting in the cargo bay. All 47 crew members gathered together, scientists and engineers and pilots and technicians. Danny stood before them and played the distress signal again. Then he explained the situation. "I am not going to order anyone to do this," he said. "This is not our mission, and it is not our war. But someone is asking for help, and no one else is answering. I think we should go. I think we should try. But I want to know what you all think." The crew was silent. Danny could see the doubt in their eyes. He could see the fear. These were not soldiers. They had families back home. They had not signed up to die in a war on the other side of the galaxy. Then a young engineer named Billy Hayes raised his hand. He was 23 years old, fresh out of the academy. And this was his first deep space mission. "Captain," Billy said, "my grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days on Earth. She said that humans survived because we helped each other. She said that when one person was in trouble, everyone else came together to help. She said that was what made us human." He paused and looked around at his fellow crew members. "I do not know if we can win this fight. I do not know if we can make any difference at all. But I know that I could not live with myself if I just flew away and let those people die. I vote we go." One by one, the other crew members raised their hands. Some of them were scared. Some of them were uncertain. But all of them agreed. The Starfall changed course for the Kovathi homeworld. 18 days later, they arrived to find a planet on fire. Draven warships filled the sky, hundreds of them, dark and massive and terrifying. The Kovathi cities were burning. Smoke covered the land like a blanket. The sounds of explosions echoed through the atmosphere. Danny sat in his captain's chair and stared at the destruction. For a moment, he wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. What could one small science vessel do against an armada like this? But then he thought about the voice of the princess. He thought about Billy's grandmother and her stories. He thought about his own mother, who had taught him to help strangers even when it was hard. He opened a communication channel to the planet's surface. "This is Captain Danny Carter of the United Earth vessel Starfall, calling Princess Valari of the Kovathi Empire. We received your distress signal. We are here to help." There was a long pause. Then a voice answered, female and young, and filled with disbelief. "You came. You actually came." "Yes, ma'am," Danny said. "Now tell us what you need." "I need a miracle," Valari said quietly. "The Draven control everything. Their warlord, Bexon, has made a base in the capital city. He says he will kill everyone if we do not surrender completely. I do not have an army. I do not have weapons. I have nothing." Danny thought for a moment. Then he smiled. You have us, he said. And we have an idea. There is an old human tradition, from a time when wars were fought by kings and warriors. When two sides could not agree, they would sometimes settle their differences with single combat. One champion from each side, fighting one-on-one. The winner takes everything. Valari was silent for a long moment. The Draven have a similar tradition, she said slowly. It is called the Challenge of Blood, but Captain, you do not understand. Draven warriors are 8 feet tall. They have armored skin and claws that can cut through metal. No species in the galaxy has ever defeated a Draven in single combat. Danny nodded. He had expected this. Wow, he said. There is a first time for everything? Warlord Dexon received the challenge with amusement. He was sitting in the great throne room of the Corvathi Palace, surrounded by his generals and advisors when the message arrived. A small alien vessel from a species no one had ever heard of was demanding the right of single combat. Dexon was the most feared warrior in the Draven Collective. He stood over 8 feet tall, with gray armored skin that could stop most weapons. His claws were 6 inches long and sharp, enough to cut through starship hull plating. He had killed hundreds of enemies in personal combat, and he had never lost a fight. He laughed when he heard the challenge. These humans must be mad, he said to his generals. Do they not know who I am? Do they not know what I have done? Perhaps they are desperate, said one of his advisors. The princess has no other options. This may be her final attempt to save her people. Then I will accept their challenge, Dexon said, and I will make an example of them. The galaxy will see what happens to those who oppose the Draven. He broadcast his response across every channel, making sure that the entire galaxy could hear. I, Warlord Dexon of the Draven Collective, accept the challenge of blood from the humans of Earth. I will meet their champion on the neutral moon of Velar, as tradition demands. The fight will be broadcast to every civilization in the known galaxy. When I'm finished, everyone will know that humanity is weak, and that the Draven are supreme. The message reached the Starfall within minutes. Danny listened to it calmly, then turned to his crew. Well, he said, I guess we have a fight. Kate Morrison grabbed his arm. Danny, this is suicide. You saw the reports on Draven biology. They are twice your size. Their skin is like armor. Their reflexes are faster than ours. You cannot beat him in a fair fight. Who said anything about a fair fight? Danny replied with a small smile. This is not a joke. You will die. Danny was quiet for a moment. He looked around at his crew, at the 47 people who had followed him across the galaxy because they believed in doing the right thing. He thought about the princess waiting on the planet below, alone and afraid. He thought about all the innocent people who would die if he did nothing. Maybe I will die, he said quietly. But maybe I will not. Either way, I have to try. If I run away now, I could not live with myself. Cade stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed and shook her head. You are the most stubborn man I have ever met. That is why you like me. The neutral moon of Velar was a small, barren rock with no atmosphere. The Draven set up a combat arena in the center of a wide crater with force fields to hold in breathable air. Cameras were positioned around the arena to broadcast the fight to billions of viewers across the galaxy. Princess Valari traveled to the moon on a small shuttle. She had never met Danny Carter in person, and she was not sure what to expect. When she saw him for the first time, she was surprised by how ordinary he looked. He was not tall or muscular. He did not have weapons or armor. He was just a normal-looking man with brown hair and kind eyes. You are the one who answered my call? She asked. Danny nodded. Yes, ma'am. You are going to fight Warlord Dexon? That is the plan. Valari shook her head slowly. You will die. No one can defeat a Draven warrior. I have seen the recordings. I have read the histories. They are unstoppable." Danny smiled gently. "With respect, Princess, you have never seen a human fight. I do not understand. Most species in the galaxy evolved on peaceful worlds. They had plenty of food, stable climates, and few predators. But humans are different. We come from a planet called Earth, and Earth is what scientists call a death world." Valari frowned. "What is a death world?" "It is a planet where everything tries to kill you. We have extreme temperatures, from freezing cold to burning hot. We have predators with teeth and claws that would scare most aliens. We have poisonous plants, venomous animals, and natural disasters that destroy entire cities. We have diseases that can wipe out millions of people in a single year." Danny paused and looked out at the arena where he would soon fight. "Humans survived all of that," he continued. "We evolved to endure pain, to keep fighting even when we are injured, to never give up no matter how bad things get. We are not the strongest species, or the fastest, or the smartest. But we are the most stubborn. We simply refuse to die." Valari was not sure what to say. She had studied many species during her years of isolation, but she had never heard of anything like this. "I hope you are right," she said quietly. The arena filled with spectators from across the galaxy. Diplomats and generals and journalists gathered to watch the fight. Billions more watched on screens from their home planets. This was the most watched event in galactic history. Warlord Dexon entered the arena first. He was enormous, towering over everyone around him. His gray skin gleamed under the bright lights. His claws flexed as he moved. He raised his arms and roared, and the sound echoed across the crater. Then Danny entered. He was alone. He wore simple clothing, nothing that would protect him from Draven claws. He carried no weapons except a standard combat knife, the kind that every human soldier was issued during basic training. He looked small and fragile next to the massive alien warlord. The crowd fell silent. Many of them thought this was a joke. Surely the humans would not send this ordinary-looking man to fight the most dangerous warrior in the galaxy. Dexon looked down at Danny and laughed. "This is your champion? This small, soft creature? I have crushed insects that were more impressive." Danny said nothing. He just stood there, calm and still, watching the warlord. "I will make this quick," Dexon said. "I will break every bone in your body, and then I will take your head as a trophy. Your species will learn to fear the Draven." Danny still said nothing. He simply raised his knife and shifted into a fighting stance. The referee, a neutral Solarian observer, stepped forward. "This is a challenge of blood," he announced. "The fight will continue until one combatant is dead or surrenders. There are no other rules. May the strongest warrior win." He stepped back and raised his hand. Dexon crouched, ready to charge. His muscles tensed. His claws extended. Danny took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. He thought about his mother and father back on Earth. He thought about Kate and Billy, and all the other crew members who believed in him. He thought about Princess Valari and her people, counting on him to save them. The referee's hand dropped. The fight began. Dexon charged like a storm. He was fast, far faster than something so large should be. His claws cut through the air, aiming for Danny's throat. Most species would have frozen in fear. Most species would have died in that first moment. Danny was not most species. He dropped to the ground and rolled to the side, avoiding the claws by inches. He felt the wind of the strike pass over his head. He came up behind the warlord and slashed with his knife, cutting a thin line across the back of Dexon's leg. The cut was shallow. Draven's skin was thick and tough, but it was enough to make Dexon stumble, and that was all Danny needed. He darted away before the warlord could turn around. He moved constantly, never staying in one place, always circling and watching. Dexon spun to face him. His eyes were wide with surprise. No one had ever dodged his first attack before. "You are quick," the warlord admitted. "But speed will not save you. I will wear you down, and then I will kill you." He attacked again, faster this time. His claws swept in wide arcs, each strike powerful enough to tear through metal. Danny ducked and dodged and weaved, using every bit of agility he possessed. He could not match the Draven in strength, so he had to be smarter. A claw caught his arm. The pain was immediate and intense. Blood began to flow from a deep gash, staining his sleeve red. The crowd gasped. Many of them expected Danny to fall, to surrender, to beg for mercy. But Danny did not fall. He did not even slow down. He gritted his teeth and kept moving. He switched his knife to his other hand and continued to fight. His injured arm hung at his side, bleeding freely, but he showed no sign of giving up. Dexon frowned. He had fought many enemies in his life, and all of them had stopped fighting after the first serious wound. Pain was supposed to be a signal to surrender. Pain was supposed to end the battle. But this human was different. The fight continued. Minutes passed, then an hour. Danny took more wounds. A slash across his back. A deep cut on his thigh. A blow to the ribs that cracked at least 2 bones. Each injury should have been enough to stop him. Each injury made him slower, weaker, more vulnerable. But he would not stop. Across the galaxy, billions of viewers watched in disbelief. They had never seen anything like this. The human was bleeding from a dozen wounds. He was staggering, barely able to stand. But every time Dexon thought he had won, Danny would dodge another attack or land another small cut with his knife. Princess Valari stood at the edge of the arena, her hands pressed against the barrier. Tears streamed down her face. She had asked this man for help, and now she was watching him die for her. She wanted to look away, but she could not. Why will he not give up? She whispered. Kate Morrison stood beside her, having traveled to the moon to watch the fight. "Because he is human," Kate said quietly. "This is what we do. We keep fighting. We never surrender. It is in our blood." Dexon was growing tired. He had expected an easy victory, but instead he was spending hours chasing a wounded animal around the arena. Every time he thought the human was finished, Danny would somehow find the strength to keep going, and those cuts were adding up. Danny's knife was not powerful enough to cut through Draven armor in one strike, but it was sharp enough to leave shallow wounds, and shallow wounds bleed. Dexon was covered in small cuts now, each one leaking dark blood. He was not in danger of dying from any single wound, but together they were weakening him. The warlord was starting to understand something terrible. He was not going to win this fight easily, and if he did not win soon, he might not win at all. "What are you?" Dexon demanded. "Why will you not die?" Danny was swaying on his feet. His vision was blurry. His entire body screamed with pain. But somewhere deep inside him, in the ancient part of his brain that his ancestors had developed over millions of years of survival, a fire was still burning. "I am human," he said, his voice rough and quiet. "And humans do not quit." He attacked Dodd. It was not a smart attack. It was not a careful attack. It was the desperate charge of a wounded animal, all fury and instinct and stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Dexon raised his claws to defend himself, but Danny was faster. He dove under the warlord's guard and drove his knife upward. There was a gap in the Draven armor, just beneath the arm, where the plates did not quite meet. Danny had been watching for that gap for over an hour, waiting for the right moment. The knife sank into the hilt. Dexon screamed. It was the first time anyone had ever heard a Draven scream. The sound echoed across the arena, across the moon, Across the galaxy. Danny twisted the knife. Dexon fell. The warlord crashed to the ground, his massive body shaking the floor of the arena. He tried to rise, but his strength was gone. Dark blood poured from the wound in his side. His claws scraped against the stone, but he could not find the power to stand. Danny stood over him, barely able to remain upright. His knife was still in his hand, dripping with draven blood. He looked down at the fallen warlord with no anger, no hatred, no triumph. Just exhaustion. "Do you surrender?" Danny asked. Dexon stared up at him. His eyes were filled with something that the Draven had never known before. Fear. "Yes," the warlord whispered. "I surrender." The arena was silent. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. A human, a member of a species that no one had ever heard of, had defeated the greatest warrior in the Draven collective. Then the silence broke. The Kovathi observers began to cheer. The sound spread across the galaxy as billions of viewers realized what had happened. The humans had won. The impossible had become possible. Danny swayed on his feet. The pain was overwhelming now, and his vision was going dark. He felt himself falling, but before he hit the ground, someone caught him. Princess Valari held him in her arms, tears streaming down her face. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved us." Danny smiled weakly. "Told you," he said. "Humans do not quit." Then he passed out. Danny woke up 3 days later in a medical bay that he did not recognize. The ceiling was high and curved, made of some kind of white stone that seemed to glow with soft light. Strange machines beeped quietly around his bed. His body was wrapped in bandages, and he could feel the dull ache of healing wounds beneath him. He tried to sit up, but a gentle hand pressed him back down. "Do not move," said a familiar voice. "You are still recovering." Danny turned his head and saw Princess Valari sitting beside his bed. She looked different than she had before. She was wearing a formal gown, and there was a small crown on her head. But her eyes were the same, filled with warmth and gratitude. "Where am I?" Danny asked. "The Royal Medical Center," Valari replied. "The best doctors in the Empire have been treating you. They say you will make a full recovery, but it will take time. Your injuries were severe." Danny nodded slowly. The memories of the fight were coming back to him now. The pain, the blood, the endless minutes of dodging and striking. He remembered the moment when his knife sank into Dexon's side. He remembered the warlord's surrender. "The Draven?" he asked. "Gone," Valari said with a small smile. "They honored the terms of the Challenge of Blood. Their fleet left our system the day after the fight. Warlord Dexon survived his wounds, but he has been disgraced. No one fears him anymore. The Draven Collective will not threaten us again for a long time." Danny let out a long breath. He had done it. He had actually done it. "And your people?" he asked. "The nobles who rejected you?" Valari's smile grew wider. "They kneel before me now. When they heard that I was the one who summoned a champion from the stars, they suddenly decided that I was not so cursed after all. The priests have reinterpreted the prophecy. They say that the dying star was not a sign of doom, but a sign of transformation. They say I was chosen to bring a new era to our people. Do you believe that?" Valari shook her head. "No, I know the truth. I was saved by a stranger who crossed the galaxy because he heard someone asking for help. That is not prophecy. That is just kindness." Danny was quiet for a moment. He thought about everything that had happened, about the decision he had made on the bridge of the Starfall, about the vote in the cargo bay, about the 18-day journey through uncharted space. "My crew?" he asked suddenly. "Are they okay?" "They are fine," Valari assured him. "They have been treated as honored guests. Your Lieutenant Morrison has been checking on you every few hours. She seems very concerned about you." Danny smiled. "Kate worries too much. She cares about you. They all do." You have a good crew, Captain Carter. The best. Over the next few weeks, Danny recovered from his injuries. He spent his days in the medical center, slowly regaining his strength. Valari visited him often, telling him stories about her childhood in the tower, about her years of isolation, about her dreams of a better life. Danny told her stories about Earth, about the farms of Kansas, about the vast oceans and tall mountains and crowded cities of his home world. They became friends. When Danny was finally well enough to leave the medical center, Valari held a ceremony in the great throne room of the palace. The same room where the nobles had rejected her so many years ago was now filled with people who bowed before her. The 5 lords who had stolen her crown stood in the front row, their heads lowered in shame. Valari stood on the raised platform at the front of the room, with Danny and his crew beside her. She addressed the assembled crowd with a clear, strong voice. For most of my life, I was told that I was cursed. I was told that I would bring ruin to our empire. I was rejected by everyone who should have protected me. And when our darkest hour came, when the Draven invaded and our military fell, every major power in the galaxy refused to help us. She paused and looked at Danny. But one small ship, from a species no one had ever heard of, answered my call. Captain Danny Carter and his crew crossed the galaxy to stand beside us. They risked their lives for people they had never met. They fought for us when no one else would. She turned back to the crowd. Today, I wish to honor their sacrifice. I offer Captain Carter anything he desires. Wealth, land, titles, power. Whatever he wants, it is his. The crowd murmured in anticipation. Everyone wanted to know what the human champion would ask for. Some expected him to demand gold and treasure. Others thought he might ask for a position of authority in the Corvathi government. A few even speculated that he might ask for the princess's hand in marriage. Danny stepped forward. He looked out at the sea of alien faces, at the nobles and generals and diplomats who had once ignored Valari's plea for help. He thought about what he wanted to say. Your Majesty, he said, I appreciate the offer, but I did not come here for reward. I came because someone needed help, and helping people is what humans do. The crowd fell silent. They did not understand. Why would anyone fight and suffer and nearly die without expecting something in return? However, Danny continued, there is one thing I would ask for. Not for myself, but for my people. Name it, Valari said. Friendship, Danny said simply. I ask for an alliance between Earth and Corvath. A promise that our two peoples will stand together, now and in the future. When humanity faces its own hour of darkness, I want to know that we will not face it alone. Valari smiled. It was exactly what she had expected him to say. Granted, she said. From this day forward, the Corvathi Empire and the people of Earth are allies. We will defend each other, support each other, and stand beside each other through whatever challenges the galaxy brings. She stepped down from the platform and extended her hand to Danny. He took it, and they shook hands in the human custom. Thank you, Valari said quietly, so that only he could hear. For everything? Thank you for giving us a chance, Danny replied. Most people would have given up hope. I almost did. But then you answered my call. The ceremony ended with cheering and celebration. For the first time in centuries, the Corvathi people had something to celebrate. Their princess had saved them, and their new allies had shown them that kindness still existed in the galaxy. A week later, the Starfall prepared to depart for Earth. The crew had been given gifts and honors, and they were eager to return home with news of humanity's first interstellar alliance. Danny stood on the bridge, watching as the Corvathi homeworld grew smaller on the VIEWSCRE. Kate stood beside him. So, she said, I guess we did something good after all. I told you we could make a difference. You were lucky. That fight could have gone very differently. Danny nodded. Maybe. But sometimes luck is just another word for not giving up. Kate smiled and shook her head. You are still the most stubborn man I have ever met. And you still like me. Unfortunately. As the starfall jumped to faster than light speed, Danny took one last look at the distant planet they were leaving behind. He thought about Valari, alone in her tower for so many years, waiting for someone to answer her call. He thought about the fight with Dexon and the moment when the warlord had surrendered. He thought about all the civilizations across the galaxy who had refused to help, and about the small crew of 47 humans who had chosen to try. They had come looking for new stars, and they had found something far more valuable. They had found proof that kindness mattered. They had found evidence that small acts of courage could change the course of history. They had found a friend, and in a galaxy full of ancient empires and powerful civilizations, that was worth more than all the treasure in the universe. Danny smiled and turned away from the view screen. Take us home, he said, and the starfall disappeared into the stars.